Welcome to Specific Love. Today we're going to build a travel ukulele. Now over the years, I've thought about learning some musical instruments. I've thought about maybe the guitar, the drums, the trumpet, but I've never had the discipline to actually sit down and practice day in and day out to be good at any of these items. And as I get older in age, I'm realizing that I still want to do that. I want to learn a musical instrument. So after looking around, I thought, how about the ukulele? Now I did say ukulele, and of course the correct Hawaiian pronunciation of it is ukulele, and I'm not going to get into that. There's a good chance I might use one or the other words. But in any case, how about instead of me just learning to play it, let's build one and then learn. So let's get started. Now, I did some research in figuring out exactly how to build a ukulele, and if you've never looked into them, there is a large variety. There's different sizes, there's different tuning, there's different strings, probably similar to just a regular guitar and all the different varieties you can find there. And well, it was a little bit overwhelming. And then I discovered what they call a travel ukulele. It's basically a miniature version of a ukulele, or a miniature of what some people consider a miniature already. In any case, let's do this. Now I discovered this travel ukulele on the Circuits and Strings YouTube channel. If you notice here, it still has the frets, it still has the knobs, but instead of them being on the end, they're actually within the body. And the body here is hollow in the middle, it doesn't have a back on it, and well, it's real thin. It doesn't come out on the sides very much. Now, I love this, but I'm going to make it a little bit different. Now many of these ukuleles have been designed with just a solid piece of wood that they've cut out with maybe the bandsaw or a jigsaw. Now I want to do something a little bit different. I want to see if I can design this and put this on the CNC so I can have some real distinctive edges and still make sure everything is nice and uniform on both sides. So let's start designing. Now here's what I've come up with so far. If you look here, I actually had the body angled in a little bit here because I think I'm going to do the knobs right up here. I think it'll look a little bit cooler of them coming in at an angle. I decided to give the bottom a little bit of a flare down here, basically 2 feet, so I can sit up and stand up on its end, and just some distinctive little shapes on both ends to make it just really unique. So let's get started. Now we're going to be building this ukulele on our StepCraft M1000. And we're going to be using some 3/4 inch maple plywood. Now normally this bit has a shroud around it to keep dust down and so it can vacuum it up easily, but I'm going to leave it off for now so you can see it actually cut. Alright, there we go. Let's get a closer look. Now this came out looking really good. I mean, there is a little bit of fur around the edges and it looks like it may have messed up a little bit around the tabs here. I bet that's just user error. But in any case, let's get this cut out and sand it down. Now to cut this out, I'm going to use a real thin, fine-tooth blade and go over this really carefully because we're going to try not to damage any of the edges. Now I did cut this out on a CNC machine, but if by chance you do not have a CNC machine, you can always use a bandsaw or maybe even a jigsaw to get the shape you want. Now going back to the Circuits and Strings YouTube channel, I'm not sponsored by them, but they have some great information. They have some diagrams showing exactly where the frets should go, but since my design is completely different up here than what they are doing, I'm gonna have to guess where these tuners are gonna go. I can get a close measurement, but hopefully where I put them will be correct. Now for the setup, I have purchased some tuners, some strings, and some frets. But it still leaves me with the bridge, which I think I'm going to try and use some angled aluminum. And for the turnaround, which is what allows the strings to do the 180-degree turn. So let's figure that out. Now to make the turnaround, I happen to have some clear PVC. Now this is, I've measured it about 5/8 of an inch wide here. And of course PVC is hollow, but it has a real thin wall. Now I gotta put 4 grooves into this thing, and I have to do it very carefully because it needs to be very shallow, or of course this could turn into a disaster. Now I've hooked this up to my lathe with the hopes that I can do this. So let's give this a shot. Alright, they're not perfect, but at least the PVC didn't shatter on me. Now I've marked the lengths, and we're just going to cut this to size. Oop, hopefully. Oh boy. It's not wanting to cut like I want it to. Oh, there it goes. Now the PVC cutters usually don't get a very straight edge, so we're going to touch it up over here on the disc sander. Now I just realized I made this PVC just a little bit too short, so I'm going to add these little 1/4 inch washers at each side, and that should work perfectly. Now to hold the PVC in place, I'm going to use some 1/4 inch rod with a nut on each side. Now I'm sure a lot of you have probably drilled plywood, and if you're drilling straight through the face grain, it's plenty strong. But if you've ever tried to drill through the side layers, you know it's quite delicate, can easily bust apart. And this is going to make me a little bit nervous because I got to do that. Now the ones going straight down here, I could probably pull that off on the drill press without a problem. The ones with the angles going like this and like so, that's going to take a lot of setup on the drill press to make sure everything is perfectly in alignment. And with the tight quarters, I'm not sure if that's even possible. So I'm going to take a chance and drill it by hand. Now I'm taking apart one of the tuners here, and we're going to try and slide this in. Alright, normally this piece here would go on first and be on the inside, but I don't believe I'm going to have enough room on the hinge, especially when I add this piece here and the actual tuner piece right there. I'm not going to have much room, and I believe that's all I'm going to do. I can always add that inside piece later if I need to. This is what I was kind of fearing by hand drilling it, is if you look real close, you'll notice that this side is a little bit higher than this side. I don't think that's going to be an ultimate problem because this is just for the turnaround. It's mainly where the bridge is where it's going to cut it off and construct the sound. So yeah, it's not perfectly straight, and I know in the future definitely do not hand drill it, but I think it'll work. Now to create the bridge that goes across, I think I'm going to use some of this angled aluminum. It is a little thick, but I'm going to have to cut it down probably on both sides and definitely in the width, and we'll give that a shot. And in just case you don't know, you can cut thin aluminum on most woodworking tools. Now that I have the bridge in place, I've read that it's supposed to be 15 inches from the very last fret, or sometimes called the 0 fret. So I've made that line there, and then I'm going to use this template to be able to mark all the rest of the lines and know exactly where all the frets should go. Now the frets I've purchased are a little bit wide for my setup here, so I've had to trim them down and sand them so they're not sharp, so they'll fit in each of their grooves. Now that I have all the frets in place, I was looking at this and just wondering if the strings would fit on correctly. So I just temporarily put a string in here, and looking at it, once I pulled it tight, it looked like possibly that they were sitting a little bit too high. I don't know the exact height, it just didn't seem like it would be a comfortable height to play with. So I looked it up, and they suggest at the 12th fret to have it about 3 millimeters above it. And well, looking at that, it is definitely higher than 3 millimeters, so I measured it and it's coming at about 4.5. So I need to go back, take off the bridge, we're gonna sand that down probably to about half that current height to get that much lower. Here's a little tip for you. Whenever you're sanding down aluminum, there's a good chance it's gonna get really hot pretty quick. So if you keep a little bowl here, or in case a big bowl here, with just a little bit of water in it, drop it in every few seconds, it'll cool down extremely fast. I'm talking about put it in the water for maybe 5 seconds, slosh it around, pull it out, dry it off, and it's cool to the touch again. Little trick for you. Now at this point, it's pretty much ready to assemble and then play. Except just think, all the dirty hands and oil from your hands touching it is going to completely discolor and make it look kind of nasty. So I'm going to put a sealer coat on this, give it some time to dry, and then we'll go about assembling. And to allow this to dry, we're just using a string going through one of the holes that's already in it. Now after this cured, I went ahead and I installed the bridge, the turnaround, and the tuners, and I am getting so excited because it's getting really close. Now the tuners are a little snug. I have a feeling that the sealer that we put on here probably swelled the wood just a little bit, but I'd rather have these a little snug than loose, so that works out great. So let's go install some strings. Now I bought these strings on Amazon. They're supposed to be for a soprano or a concert ukulele. This is set up for more of the size of a concert, so that should work out. I opened it up and each string is individually packaged. That makes it so much nicer to know which is first, second, third, and fourth. This is really cool. Now I'm right-handed, so I'm going to set up the first string, which is the A, will be at the very bottom. Now the way I designed this, you should be able to just tie a knot in your string, but I realized, oh no, I made these holes way too big. So to fix that, I took a popsicle stick or a craft stick and drilled some 1/16 inch holes in it, and I should be able to stick the string in there and the knots will not go through it. So I'm just going to glue that right there in the back. Now the strings were a little bit of a challenge to get in there, but I got them in there now. Well, it's definitely not in tune, but if you notice, it's actually kind of quiet. Now I'm holding this up to my chest. I'm about 3 feet from the microphone. Listen carefully. Yes, it is that quiet. Now this is definitely a quiet instrument. If you're interested in making it louder, there are designs where you can electrify this. You have to put in the correct components into it. You'd have to change the design a little bit, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted mine to be really simple, and I like the idea of it being quiet because that will allow me to practice wherever and whenever I would like. I can do this in the middle of the night and I don't have to worry about waking anybody, or I can do this on the bus or on the subway. In any case, I'm happy with this. I still have to do, of course, definitely need to tune this. It is completely out of tune and it'll probably take me a little bit to figure that out. And I gotta trim some of these wires. But overall, I'm very happy with this, and maybe one of these days I can learn to play it well. Now, are there any instruments that you are interested in playing? You don't necessarily have to build one like I did, but if there are, list those in the comments. I love to hear and read all the different varieties of instruments that people want to play nowadays. Well, with that said, I hope you enjoyed this video. So get out in your shop and have fun building.